success. If your business and organization wants to get engaged, contact the Chamber today at 908-782-7115 or give us an email at info@hunterdon-chamber.org. Advancing Hunterdon, a roadmap for economic growth for the business community of Hunterdon.
Hey, this is Joe Peters, and we're going to start by playing my introduction, and I'll be back in 60 seconds to start going through a seller's seminar that I'm going to do for you over the air.
One of the biggest decisions in your lifetime is buying or selling a house. Choosing a realtor with strong client communication, technology, and marketing skills will dramatically improve your chance of success. That's why Hunterdon and Somerset's residents rely on Joe Peters. Joe believes his clients deserve a smooth and seamless experience, not a roller coaster ride. As a Coldwell banker sales associate with 20 years of experience, he's helped hundreds of people to achieve their goals and dreams, no matter where they were in the buying or selling process. Joe accomplishes this by approaching every transaction from a business perspective. Initially, he tries to fully understand your goals and dreams and make them his own. Then he takes the mass amount of data that's available and distills it down to a few understandable action points. And finally, he controls the entire process through technology and marketing. The end result to you is a smooth, rewarding customer experience. Let Joe show you how to take his professional expertise and put it to work for you. To contact Joe, go to jpeters.com or call 908-238-0118.
So once again, it's Joe Peters, and I'm here today in scenic downtown Flemington, New Jersey. It is 4:14, and I'm on WHCR-DB, which is digital broadcasting, Hunterdon Chamber Radio Digital Broadcasting. I'm showing you the front of a seller's guide that I keep on my website. If you go to jpeters.com/guides, you can take either the buyer, the seller, or both guides down off my page by just requesting them, and it'll ask for your email, and then it will send it to you in a matter of minutes. So I thought today, since it's almost the official kickoff of seller season, we'd go through a seller's consultation as such, as far as what it takes to consider when you're selling your home. And there's a lot of things to consider, and since this is a pretty structured outline of it, I'm going to use it as the outline, and I'll meander a little as to our local area, but it's made in general for the winter season, which we're still in. So, 5 reasons to sell this winter, and they're good ones. Demand is strong. I can't tell you how strong demand is. We have an acute shortage of housing, especially in the under 400K area. There are just not enough houses on the market, and it's a wonderful time to come on to the market in order to meet that demand. Now, you may say, why is there so few houses on the market? There are really 2 reasons. One is that the people that were the baby boomers, who are typically trading up at the end of their baby boom generation, aren't doing such. There's less demand for larger scale houses, and these people are staying in place, and as a result, there's not a lot of room for the people who would be buying into there, which are the first, second, and third time buyers. Secondly, from the other end, we are not seeing any construction on entry-level housing. There are a lot of affordable housing laws in New Jersey that are being sorted out, and as a result of them and their implications, we're not seeing a lot of housings down at the lower end. And the net result is the people that would sell and move up, even though we're seeing less of them, aren't even doing it because they're not listing their house until they can find a house for themselves to move up in. And the reason for this is that they know as soon as they list it, it will sell, especially if it's under 400, under 500K. And then secondly, they'd be in a tight spot to find another house to go to. So that's one reason. Demand is strong because there is less inventory down there, and because there's less inventory down there, it's becoming harder and harder for first-time buyers to find a house that they're looking for. And a first-time buyer, if you'll recall from previous shows, kicks off a second-time buyer. First-time buyer probably buys between $150 and $300. Second-time buyer between maybe $300 and $500. And it sets off a chain reaction of 3 or 4 buys and sells. Now, what happened with the economic crunch is we didn't have a lot of people trading up. They typically do this every 7 or 8 years. So the people that came up to that point in time during the '05 through '10 area is not a good word, but through that duration in time, 2005 to 2010, probably sat tight. There was a lot of confusion, there was a lot of concerns, there were a lot of people losing their homes. And those people now are ready to move up in some instances, and others they're willing to sit put, but they're not going to put their house necessarily on the market until they find what they're looking for. There's also a lot of less competition right now. It's March 1st, today's sitting at February 20th, so we're 10 days off, is the usual kickoff for all the new listings coming on the market. And when you get into the middle of that, well, then you have more competition. So you still have time to beat it or to be in the early stages of what will be a listing frenzy, we hope, at the beginning of March. But right now, there's less competition. We're sitting with an under 4 month, in Hunterdon County, under 5 months supply until you get above 600, and then it bumps up dramatically. If you recall also, we didn't see a lot of activity over 700 last month, in the month of January. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that as we get to the end of February. So demand is strong. The fact that interest rates went up made people want to buy a house even more so, because they're afraid it's going to keep going up, and it probably will. And there's not enough inventory to meet their demand. And secondly, there's less competition. So if you put your house on the market now versus a month from now, you're going to have a lot less inventory to compete with, and the process will probably be quicker. We're finding that the average time to sell a house in Hunterdon County is somewhere around 75 days. I'm seeing sales at the low end happen the day the stuff comes on the market, and I think that's going to continue until we find enough inventory to satisfy the demand. The other thing that we're looking at is that there's never a better time to move up. Your ability to move up, and I'm not saying you've got to do what most people did, which was buy a house one size too large 10 or 15 years ago to get into those mega mansions, but moving up to a house that better fits your lifetime, lifestyle, I should say. It may be a newer kitchen, it may be less bedrooms upstairs, it may be all on one floor, it may be in a certain area that you wanted to live in. There's never been a better time, because once you get up into the over 500K pricing, there's a lot of inventory, and you can find what you're looking for. It's just that if you're trying to stay in the under 500K, and some people aren't moving out of their comfort zone, then there's a little bit of pressure in finding the house you might want. And the other thing is, it's time to move on with your life. I mean, people have sat there and they've averaged sale being 7 or 8 years in a house, average tenure in a house, and people sell it and do something, has stretched out to 12 or 13 years. And a lot of those people have a lot of equity built up in their house, and they don't know it till they go to sell it. Because once you go past 10 years on your mortgage payments, then you have a 30-year mortgage, and you're now in a 12th or 13th year of paying it back. You're paying it back a lot quicker than you're used to paying it back, and as a result, you may have a lot more equity than you think you have. The numbers are amazing. We have somewhere in the upper 70% in New Jersey with more than 20% equity in their house, which means they can easily move up, move sideways, move down, move whatever way they want to. It's not like it was back in '05 to '10 where we had a lot of people underwater. So the buyer demand continues to outpace the inventory in homes for sale. And if you take a look at New Jersey and you take a look at the buyer demand, it's really pretty good. We also can tell this from open house head counts. I set an open house in a house that was in the $1,000,001 category in Somerset County this weekend. And if you remember, it snowed on Saturday, and then it got nice on Sunday, but there was still snow on the ground. We had free buyers out. Free buyers is more than average for what we get for a house of that price. And I understand from the other realtors that they had good days as well. The seller supply, though, is very weak. I mean, we're sitting in Hunterdon County currently with less than 5 months supply on hand, and if you get down into the 2s and 3s, it's more like 2 and 3 months supply on hand. Unheard of. Between 4 and 6 is normal. That's where prices aren't going up. They're not going down. Above 6 is where we start to see pressure on prices, more than 6 months supply. And less than 4 months supply is where we start to see multiple offers and houses going for at least asking, if not above asking, because of the demand. So we've got to look at the month's supply, and how do you calculate that? You say there's 10 houses on the market. We sold 2 in the last 30 days. They didn't close yet, but they went under contract. So if you divide one into the other, you have 5 months supply. 4 to 6 is average. Prices are stable. Above 6 months, prices have pressure. Below 4 months, it's a seller's market, and you're getting multiple offers. So the lack of listings have slowed down the market. Regarding existing home inventory, and I'm just going to read this verbatim. Existing home sales have declined on a 1-year low in August, per the latest report from the National Association of Realtors. Existing home sales slipped 1.7% and seasonally adjusted to an annual rate of 5.35 million. That's just a big number. That doesn't mean anything, but marks the 4th decline in 5 months. We're seeing less and less inventory. Regarding new home inventory, and we have very little new home inventory because we're not building new houses in Hunterdon County, very few anyway. The starts are down, but they're improving. And the bottom line is the biggest challenge in today's marketing is getting current homeowners and builders to realize the opportunity to maximize profit by selling or building now. Now, there's more complicated problems than that. Remember I said we're not building entry-level homes. An entry-level home would probably be in the 300 to 500 range. That's where a person as a second-time buyer typically buys. First-time buyer typically is going to buy a new house. They're going to buy a townhouse, a condo, a small single family and get started. But the second-time buyer becomes more discriminate and wants the house that they're looking for and to match their family size. The dynamics of family size play into this a little bit as well, in that we're seeing 1 and 2 children on the average, not the 3, 4, and 5 and 6 children we saw just a generation or 2 ago. And prices over the last year, if you take a look at the Mid-Atlantic, we're at about 4.8, just under 5%. The latest number that I saw for New Jersey was just over 3%. So you say, wow, everybody in New Jersey's house went up 3%. No, it doesn't work that way. What happened was certain houses went up much more than 3%, and some houses didn't go up at all. And it's based on your geographical location and the price of your house. So the further west you are, the less demand there is for your house and for houses in general, not just your house. Nobody's picking on you. But if you're in Clinton, in Hunterdon County, there's much more demand than if you're in Frenchtown in Hunterdon County. And as a result, your house in Clinton probably went up more, under 500,000, than your house in Frenchtown. As a matter of fact, I would gamble that your house in Frenchtown didn't go up at all, might have even dropped a little. Then secondly, if your house in Clinton was a $700,000 or $800,000 house, it may not have gone up at all, maybe very minimally, where if your house in Clinton was a $400,000 house, it probably went up the full 3, 4, 5%. So we have a combination of 2 factors, the price of the house and the location geographically in the market. Equity. New Jersey sitting at a 74% positive equity level, and very close to that with, that is the number with 20% equity. So New Jersey has been the number one state in the nation, and a lot of it had to do with the hurricanes, in foreclosures. It's been that way for 4 or 5 years. Yet, it's gotten 50% better on the number of foreclosures, yet last year we still filed 71,000 foreclosures. The reason people file for a foreclosure when the beginning would be the short sale, where they owe more on the house than the house is currently worth in the market, is that there's no equity. So the fact that we have more and more houses, almost 80% with positive equity totaling up to 20%, is good news for New Jersey. Yet, we still have a lot of houses that are in what we call either short sales or bank sales. Short sale being the bank gives you permission to sell it for less than you owe. Bank sale means the bank finally got fed up with your inability to get it sold for one reason or another and has bought it back off of you, and the bank now owns it. And both of those are opportunities for investors and opportunities for people that are in general buying a house, but it's not a sought-after opportunity because two things happen with short sales and bank-owned houses. One, they get a little beat up. The people didn't have a lot of money. That's why they were in the situation. And two, there's a certain amount of unhappiness when you're going through this, and your house is either not being taken care of properly or in some instances really being abused. So those houses, which are typically sold as is, that are short sales or bank-owned properties, are probably not prime pieces of inventory. Yet, there's still opportunity out there. But we're not talking about the foreclosure process. We're talking about the home buying, and I should say selling process. If you are looking for a luxury home, couldn't be a better time. And a lot of people have sort of pent-up equity and pent-up desire, and the kids are gone. I don't know, Marilyn and I did it. We bought a very large, over 4,000 square foot house just in that point in time. And we just fulfilled our goals and dreams and lived in a house that we enjoyed for almost 10 years, that we loved, that was much more size-wise than we really needed, but it was great for entertainment. It was living in a lap of luxury, and fortunately we were able to get out of it without losing anything on it. But we did wind up selling it because the market was dropping. We sold it in 2009, and this could be a good time to take a look at that if that's what you want to do. Yet, what we're seeing are less and less baby boomers wanting to make that mega mansion move anymore. Housing bubble. There can only be a housing bubble, which means this whole market's going to explode, if there's speculators in the market, and we're not seeing speculators in the market. The market is stable. The new lending restrictions that were put into place after the last housing bubble did burst have prevented it from happening again. So although you hear loose talk on the news about possible housing bubble, we in New Jersey haven't even gotten back to where the bubble was yet. Other places, New York City's at about 125% of what the bubble was. Areas nearer to New York City are in excess of where the peak was, where the bubble was in 05, 06. In New Jersey in general, we're still probably in the 80 percentile. There's still a ways to go, and the experts aren't foreseeing a housing bubble. So what about prices? Well, prices in general are forecast to rise about 4% a year over the next 5 years. That's not bad news. That's controllable average. And if you're going to rise 4 to 5% over the next 5 years, you in effect are going to be in a house 5 years from now that is worth probably 25% more than it is today. Think about it. 4%, 4%, 4%, 5 times is 20, but you get some compounded interest, and some, I said 4 to 5%, some years better than others, some may be high freeze, but buy a house today being 2018, and in 5 years, 2023, that house could very easily, by these forecasts, be worth 25% more. So if you bought a $400,000 house now, it could be worth $500,000 in 2023. That's a nice increase on your money. So the prices are rising, but they're controllable. And in effect, the bottom line is that CoreLogic predicts that great home prices will appreciate by another 5% by this time next year. If you're a homeowner looking to take advantage of your home equity by moving up to your dream home, you should take a look at it. And they gave some examples. And you're getting also into an area where the interest rates are rising. So we all remember Janet Yellen left about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and the day after she left, nothing to do with her leaving, the market started a correction, and the market corrected itself by 10 or 11%. So we lost from 26.4 all the way down to about in the 23,000 range equity in the market. It has slowly built itself back, and if we took a look, today wasn't a great day on the market either, but if we take a look at the current market position, it's at 24.9, let's say 25 round numbers. So we're probably sitting at about 1 or 2% under where we were at the peak, maybe 3% under. But we've recaptured a lot of that correction. But the interest rates are going up. So now, you've got a compounding factor. Nothing's ever easy in real estate. You've got house prices rising. So if you don't buy it now and you buy the same house next year, you're probably going to pay 4 to 5% more. Depends where you're at. Depends the price point. But in general, you're probably going to pay 4 to 5% more. Since this market correction started, interest rates have risen. And as a result of that, and it's sort of a reverse quantitative easing. If you remember, the Fed did some quantitative easing by buying up mortgage-backed securities and kept the interest rates down at about 3.5, 3 3/8. They've sort of reversed this process because they see the market being stronger, and they see the fact that it could be inflationary to keep it going further. And as a result, interest rates have started to rise. They went from, on election day, 3 3/8 to somewhere around the first of the year, just under 4%, maybe 3 7/8. And in the last 2 to 3 weeks, they've managed to get from that just under 4% to just under 4.5%. Now, what does this mean? This means that your buying power is evaporating. If you could afford at 4% a house that cost $500,000, at 4.5%, you could probably only afford a house that's worth $475,000. So you've lost a percentage of your buying power. If you went from 4% to 5%, you'd lose 9% of your buying power. So a whole percentage change in interest rates would cost you buying power. At the same time, you're losing buying power because the prices are rising, especially in the popular price points. So your purchasing power, if you bought a $400,000 house at 3 3/4, and you bought the same house at 4 3/4, it would be $1,850 at 3 3/4 and $2,086 at 4 3/4. That's a lot of money difference. So what you've got to be able to do is find a house that's right for you and find a house that fits your lifestyle and get it accomplished in a market where a lot of other people are thinking about the same thing. Truly takes some expertise. It's not something you're going to be able to figure out on your own. Now, where are interest rates headed? Interest rates are forecasted to be, by the end of the year, right around 5%. You, in effect, have to realize that by that point, they'd have lost 9% in buying power, maybe 10%, because we were a little under 4%. And they're going to lose another 4 to 5% in the rising price of houses or appreciation. A 15% difference. A 15% difference on a $500,000 house would be $750,000. I'm sorry, $75,000. I had the numbers right, the decimal point in the wrong place. So if you could afford a $500,000 house at 4%, and that same house over a year went to 5%, you'd lose 9% there and another 5% or so in appreciation. You now can only afford a $425,000 house. That's why there's a rush out there. So, how to get the most from your money from the sale of your home? Pricing is really, there's a couple of aspects here. I'm going to go through pricing a little bit. The first 30 to 60 days on the market are key, because after it, and you've done it yourself, people look and say, why is the house on the market 90 days? Why hasn't somebody else bought it? Let's keep looking. We'll keep it in the back of our mind. You need to price it correctly. Houses in New Jersey and on the nation in general sell between 2 and 3% off the final price that it was listed for. So if you had a house listed at $500 and it was the correct price, the final selling price, if you don't get into a bidding war, is going to be about somewhere between $485 and $490. But we get sellers saying, let's try it at the higher price. It's a valiant effort, but there's a couple of flaws in it. One is, even if you got the house to sell at a higher price than what your realtor thinks it should be sold for, and we can show you scientific proof of how we're coming up with that number, it still has to appraise. So let's say you took a house that's truly worth $500,000 and you list it for $550,000. And somebody comes along and it's just what they needed. This is it. They got it. They're going to pay $550,000. Everybody's happy. They go to apply for a mortgage. The mortgage company sends out at random, they can't use their own, a certified home appraiser, and a home appraiser appraises the house at $500,000. Well, they can't get a mortgage at $550,000. And you say, well, they're putting 20% down. No, it doesn't matter. It's 20% down on $500,000. The house has to appraise, or $550,000. It has to appraise for $550,000 in order for them to get that mortgage at 20% down. If not, they've got to put more money down. But guess what a buyer's going to say? It's not my problem the house didn't appraise. It's the seller's problem. Sometimes they'll split the difference with you. But in today's market, I think you're going to wind up as the seller having to eat the difference. So even if you could get somebody to buy it, the bank's not going to buy it. They know what your house is worth. Now, people say, well, Zillow says. Well, you know what? If you read the fine print at the bottom of the page, Zillow's never been in the state of New Jersey. Zillow has never been in your house. Zillow says on the bottom it's within a 20 to 30% margin of error. 25%, just to use the average, is $100,000 on a $500,000 house. What a realtor is going to do is they're going to come by and they're going to take 3 or 4 recent sales for houses like yours in the area. Some of them might have an extra garage space or an extra bedroom, and they'll compensate for that. And they're going to say, based on those 3 or 4 sales in the last 6 months, here's the price range where we think your house will list. And if the realtor comes back and says, we think your house is going to sell at probably $475,000 to $500,000, you decide yourself how quick you want to sell the house. If you want to sell it quick, you list it for $475,000. It's going to sell a lot quicker than $500,000. If in effect you want to go for the higher number and try it, you can list it at $500,000, but it's going to take a little bit longer before somebody comes along and wants to pay. And you may have to drop it to $490,000, $485,000 before it happens. And then you're going to get 98, 97% of that. And then the bank's going to come along and appraise it, and they're going to use what we just as realtors did, comps that are similar in your area that have sold in the last 6 months. So getting it priced right is key. And if you don't do it, you're shooting yourself in the foot, because then you're going to be on the market some exorbitant amount of time, and the average buyer taking a look at your house is going to say, why has the house been on the market so long? Next point is getting access to your house. You need to make it easy to show your house. I will not take a listing. My company will not take a listing where we don't use a lockbox. I've recently had a customer say, I want you to meet every buyer at this house and show it to them personally. And I said, A, I won't do it because it's not the right thing to do. But B, it's going to cost you time in selling your house. Your house is adequately shown by the selling agent that's going to bring that buyer over. Your realtor, myself, will talk to that selling agent in advance to make sure they're looking at a house that's right for them, and will understand after looking at it that I can answer any questions they've got. You've got to put a lockbox out there. You've got to put a key in a lockbox, and you've got to give the agents access to your house. If, in effect, you don't do that, you're just breaking with all common sense. Now, what about using an agent? We get some people that start to think they can sell their house themselves. It's a dangerous thought, because the logic they use is nobody can show the house like I can show the house. Well, I'm going to tell you, nobody wants to sell their home when they're looking at a house. So we have contradicting logic. The seller thinks he can show it better than anybody on earth, and the buyer doesn't want to meet the seller. As a matter of fact, the average seller and buyer do not meet each other in a normalized transaction until the closing table, because the realtors on both sides hold the transaction together by being your buffer up until that point in time. So you need to find an agent that has got the experience level that you have a comfort level with, and you've got to remember that the house needs to be sold twice. It needs to be sold by the ultimate buyer. To the ultimate buyer, and then to the buyer's appraiser from their bank, so that, in effect, it does appraise and nobody has to bring money to the table. I've seen a lot of deals die along those lines. Now, appraisers are pretty good at this. They do this for a living. The banks cannot use the same appraisers over and over because it looks like collusion. They have to draw some out of a hat. And you have no control over which appraiser comes to your house. They may not even be from the area. But a good appraiser, like a good realtor, can price your house accurately by looking at current sales. The only time it's difficult to price your house if you have a very unusual house and there's nothing to compare it to. Because I'll give you an example. Let's say your house has a 2-car garage and all the others were 3-car garages. We can look up on a chart and say for your price range, a 3rd-car garage is worth $9,000. Maybe the price is $15,000. I don't know why, I'm making it up. We can look it up though. And we'd say, okay, these 3 houses all had 3-car garages. We'll take $15,000 off each of them when we compare it to yours. Some of them had a 3rd bath. We'll take the 3rd bath off. Some of them had a 5th bedroom. We'll take the 5th bedroom off. Some of them sold almost 6 months ago. We'll put present value of money on because the prices keep going up in certain price points. But in effect, you need to get an agent that understands your area, that can help you price your house accurately. And then you need to pick an agent that, in effect, knows how to market your house. Now, there's one thing that Coldwell Banker does that no other agency that I know of has the capability of doing. We can look up your zip code and we can look up your price point. We can tell you where customers from that zip code and price point are coming from. I'd like to say I can almost tell you who's going to buy your house. I just don't know what their name is, because I can say they're going to come from the zip code and they're going to come probably from first-time buyer pool, second-time buyer pool, right-size buying pool. The thing you don't want to hear from an agent is, we'll put it in the newspaper. I fight very hard not to put it in the newspaper. Not that I don't want to spend the money, because at the end of the day, if somebody needs their see their house in the newspaper, I'll put it in there for them. But the average buyer looking for your house is not looking for it in a newspaper. 93% of all buyers find a house that they're looking for on the internet and then find a realtor in order to show it to them. They find the house first, they find a realtor second. They might find a realtor for a lot of ways. They might find him at an open house and say, oh, I like his style or her style. And they're sending me listings, and this is one of the listings they've sent, and yours pops up, and they'll come in and take a look at it. But when you're going to enlist the services of a realtor, when you're about to list your house, there's two things you don't want to hear from your real estate agent. You don't want to hear them bragging about their success. And you don't want to hear about them bragging about their company's success. Who cares? Yeah, it's nice to know that you sold 72 houses last year. And it's nice to know that your company is number one in the area. But what are you going to do for me? How are you going to set the market value on probably the largest asset that my family owns as a seller? And how are you going to set the time schedule for the successful sale of that asset? And then thirdly, what about your fee? And fees are totally negotiable. Within ranges, they're negotiable. I know I try to do more when I list a house, and as a result, I get a little bit more than the average realtor, but I don't have any problem getting that because people know I can get the house sold quicker and I can get it prepared for market better than the average realtor, and that is worth a little bit extra. On the opposite side, we have some agents who don't have the expertise that I have, for example, and they're willing to discount their price. And I say to the seller up front, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are you willing to put a realtor to work for you as a negotiator that's willing to cut the price before they even talk to you about what's involved? I'm not. And I don't. I do not cut my prices based on the fact that you don't want to pay what the market rate is. Quite honestly, it costs me quite a bit of my own money. Coldwell Banker does not pay me to put the sign in front of your house. Coldwell Banker does not pay me to put the advertisement in the paper. Coldwell Banker does not pay me to put the Facebook ads up and the Zillow ads up and the other places. They do get a share of the proceeds at the very end, and we split it up according to my contract. But all of this is coming out of my pocket, and I'm not willing to spend the money if you're not willing to price your house in a way that it will sell within reason. Now, the last thing as a seller, and this is, my God, the worst thing you can do, is start to think that, well, maybe I should sell it myself. They call it for sale by owner, or a FSBO. The main reason a FSBO doesn't work is 87% of all buyers buy their house from an agent. So if you're going to try to sell it on yourself and talk to the seller, what you're going to find is, one, you don't have as many sellers to talk to. Two, is that the sellers that you're talking to are looking for a discount because they know you're not paying an agency fee. And three, NAR has proven statistics that an average for sale by owner sells for 6% plus less than sold through an agency and takes a lot longer to sell. You really need two things out of an agent. One is you need their expertise, and I call it glue. Remember I said a buyer and a seller should meet each other to the closing table? In between the time that the sale starts to happen and finally happens and you go through attorney review, your agents on both sides are making the transaction happen. And then two, you get this personal pride thing. You know what he said about my house? He doesn't like the kitchen floor that I put in. Who cares? We're trying to sell him the house. Whether he likes their floor. I had a guy, and I had a really expensive house I sold, who didn't even like the house. He just wanted to be in a school district. I was offended by that, but my agent says, sit down, I'm talking. Even though I was an agent, I sold it for another agent. So 95% of the buyers are finding on the internet, and only 17% are looking at ads in the newspaper. Results, come from the internet. There are too many people to negotiate if you try to. You have to talk to buyers. You have to talk to agents that the buyers are representing. You have to talk to attorneys, yours and the other side. You have to talk to inspectors. You have to talk to mortgage people. You have to talk to repair people. All of that is how the agent earns their money. And that's something they do. In my case, I sell about 24 houses a year, several dozen times a year. It's something that I do for a living. It is something that your agent would do for a living for you, and that's what you're paying he or her for. So if you're hiring an agent, you're hiring an agent because they can sell your house for more, they can do all the work for you, and they can sell it in less time than you can yourself. For sale by owners become much more difficult with the new laws, and as I said earlier, you net more money when you use an agent. It's proven. It's not a Joe Peters fact. It's a National Association of Realtors fact. So what you're trying to do is get exposure. I'll give you just one example in selling your house. If you were to sell it, if I was to list your house as a Coldwell Banker agent, I could tell you where your customers are coming from. I don't share that with you till we get the house listed, but I can tell you that. B, I can advertise to those areas through social media at a fraction. So instead of putting a spray and pray ad in the newspaper where you put a picture of your house, all the nice things about it, and pray somebody sees it, which they're not because nobody reads the newspaper, I go to the zip codes that your buyers are most likely going to come from, and I advertise it there. I advertise it also on 900 sites, including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, NewJersey.com, which we know is the Star Ledger, the Zillows, the Trulias, the National Association NAR.com, the endless. Every site your house is on. When I run an open house, that site appears, that open house appears on all those sites. Why? Because I have that all in my repertoire. Why? Because that's what it takes to sell a house in a reasonable period of time. And that costs some money. And as a result of it, I ask for a normal agency fee as a result, and usually we can come to accord on that. So let's do a quick recap. We've got, I'm looking 2 or 3 minutes left, 2 minutes really. It couldn't be a better time to sell. We don't have enough inventory. It couldn't be a better time to buy, especially if you're trading up, because the higher end markets are not rising as high and there's more inventory up there. It's a little tricky. You definitely need to be dealing with an experienced agent if you're trying to sell one house and buy another. We've got experience on the steps that it takes. You need to find an agent that understands the market and understands technology, and you're listening to one for the last 45 minutes. My name is Joe Peters. I work for Coldwell Banker. I cover both Hunterdon and Somerset County, and I help people to achieve their goals and dreams in residential real estate. I've been doing this professionally for 15 years. I've been doing it as an investor for 5 years ahead of that, and I'd love to help you achieve your goal and dream if you'll just give me a call. I'm going to play my commercial, which will tell you how to get in touch with me, and I hope to hear the phone ring in the next day or two. Thank you very much for tuning in.
One of the biggest decisions in your lifetime is buying or selling a house. Choosing a realtor with strong client communication, technology, and marketing skills will dramatically improve your chance of success. That's why Hunterdon and Somerset's residents rely on Joe Peters. Joe believes his clients deserve a smooth and seamless experience, not a roller coaster ride. As a Coldwell Banker sales associate with 20 years of experience, he's helped hundreds of people to achieve their goals and dreams, no matter where they were in the buying or selling process. Joe accomplishes this by approaching every transaction from a business perspective. Initially, he tries to fully understand your goals and dreams and make them his own. Then he takes the mass amount of data that's available and distills it down to a few understandable action points. And finally, he controls the entire process through technology and marketing. The end result to you is a smooth, rewarding customer experience. Let Joe show you how to take his professional expertise and put it to work for you. To contact Joe, go to jpeters.com or call 908-238-0118.
And if you go to jpeters.com/guides, you'll see a place where you can download this seller's guide. There's also a buyer's guide. And on my site, you can find my monthly market updates for Hunterdon and Somerset County. I also run separate ones for several other areas that I specialize in. And you can find all of my blog posts, which will give you a really good, well-rounded understanding of what's happening in the real estate market. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will be talking to you again next week. Thank you very much.